Hello everybody, my name is David. Thank you for watching CNXG. Today's video is about neglect and, really how damaging it is. A lot of us don't know that we've been neglected really much at all. The most important years start right away as an infant, and we can't remember that. Even other problems cause us to not remember much of our childhood. And we all believe that our childhood is normal because we have nothing really to compare it to. But neglect is awful, really, really damaging. And that's why I kind of talk about it a lot, because a lot of people think that when I'm telling them they might have C-PTSD from their childhood, and they'll say, well, it wasn't that bad, it was okay. No hitting, no sexual abuse. They were there for me. They provided food and shelter and water and doctors and schools and all that stuff. I had everything I needed. And, I talk about the emotional needs that we need, and that's what's most important. That is what children attach themselves to the caretaker that provides emotional needs. It is so vitally important. Neglect is when the child does not get what they need and what they expect to get. They expect to get these things. It's programmed in them. Children need as much input as they can get. They need it. So, what's really important, I've talked about this in older videos, serve and return. The child serves and the parent returns. And it's attention. It's being attentive. The child, points at something, right? And the parent looks back at the child and says, ooh, and the child coos, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, right? And the parent does it back to them, ooh, ah, ah, and the child, waves his hand or something, and then the dad or the mom waves their hand. And this is so necessary. These experiences is what a child needs for the rest of their life. Experiences are really, really important. It shapes the architecture of our brain by giving that child as much input as you can. And if it doesn't get it, if it misses out on this kind of serve and return, this kind of input from the parent, this attention, it's damaging. And it's also social skills. It sets us up for bad social skills. Not only that, stress affects the entire body. When there is no return and all the body's stress systems are activated. Okay, so not only is the child not getting the experiences it needs, it's not getting emotionally regulated like it needs. All of these stress symptoms are activated. Your body goes into high stress. To that child, it says danger, danger. When there is nothing there, when the parents aren't there. I have in one of my old videos an experiment that I think is great. The mother has the child in a seat in front of her, and this is just an infant, small little infant, can't talk yet, and the mother is told to not have any expression and not do anything, react to the child at all, just stare at it. So the mom looks at the child, and it's just, right? And no matter what the child does, coos and caws and waves and laughs until the mother doesn't do anything, and that's immediate danger. You can see it in that child. And all the stress is activated in their body. They're screaming, right? They're going into a hyperarousal state. And it's just horrible. It's just horrible. Neglect is awful. And it starts right away, right when the child needs this input, immediately. So you guys can't remember when you're 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. A good way to think about it, though, is, you could find out kind of how your caretakers were maybe as far back as you can remember. I try and talk about with my clients, obviously they can't go back that far, so how far can you go back? When can you remember? What's some of your first memories? And let's talk about the kind of attention that your parents gave you when you were 4. How did you feel? And it kind of tells you a little bit. I have clients some of their parents never loved them. If you don't love your child, amongst all kinds of other feelings that parent is going to have towards the child, but you just can't be that attentive. I can't imagine, if you don't even love your child, that you can be there for them, all the time. You're going to let them cry, and there's all kinds of different reasons. You have an alcoholic parent, You have, maybe your father, maybe your mother you think is a great person, and I'm never going to say they're not a great person, but your mother's a great person. and your father's abusive, and you still believe that your mother provided everything that you needed, and that's quite impossible. If your father's abusive to you, your father's also abusive to her. And if she's staying in that relationship, not only is it very unhealthy, but it's very stressful. It's hard to be the best mother you can be under those circumstances. When you're a child, your brain soaks up tons of information. That's why, children can learn languages faster, multiple languages. It's much harder for us to do that as an adult. So all these things that they can soak in, just as good as they are, that's why trauma is so much more damaging as a child. Okay? So, the younger child always seems to be affected more if there is a big, vast period in the family where the caretakers are neglecting the children. It's much more damaging at 6 months than at 6 years. I mean, big time, big time. Here's just here's 4 classifications of neglect, okay? And this might help you guys to realize kind of what attention you got and what kind of, if you were neglected much or what kind of neglect. Now, first of all, don't get this wrong. Some small amounts of neglect are good for a child at a certain age, not an infant. But later it can be kind of good because the first one is occasional inattention. So it's just occasional. You tend to learn how to self-soothe, and it makes you explore your environment. It builds that brain architecture for the child. So it can be somewhat good. I'm not saying neglect your child, but I hope you understand at a certain age when they aren't, and that kind of comes to when the child becomes a certain age, you stop giving it as much attention. You stop being there for the child all the time. You want them to start figuring things out on their own, make some mistakes and learn, things like that, right? Number 2 is chronic understimulation. So all the time, they're not getting the stimulation that they need. It's just vast periods of time where the child is just left there. This is regularly less interaction and can be fixed with extra attention and education. So it's not too late. This happens a lot in homes. And I've always said, even a child understands I'm sorry. Okay, you can make mistakes as a parent as long as you fix them, even with an infant. Okay, so that's kind of what this is about. So the number 3 is severe neglect in family context. So prolonged periods of inattention, basic needs not met. And that's physical and emotional. Okay, or either or. Number 4 is severe neglect in an institutional setting. And this is horrible, like orphanages. New caretakers all the time. New faces all the time. Can't attach. People aren't there. In between shifts, no one's watching the child. You'll notice if that happens to you, you didn't get much attention. If you have a really flat head sometimes, you're a child, you've been laid in a crib all day. As the head is forming, it'll stay flat. This is not just an orphanage as well. This is more common than people think. Okay? So, I wanted to brush up on neglect because it's something that if we aren't totally aware of and we can't remember, we don't know we were neglected. And, if you're sitting there, I wasn't sexually molested, I wasn't hit, my parents didn't come and go and abandon me all the time, but they're neglectful. Okay? I'm not telling you your parents are bad people. They just weren't the greatest parents, if that's what happened. But it's really, really common. Not to excuse it. It's very, very common. We all usually have experienced some form of neglect. Okay? It's just about how much. And like I said before, you can talk about, the kind of care you had. It really helps to have somebody point these things out to you. Because so often I talk to clients and they'll brush by something that's pretty bad, pretty horrible, and they're just like, it's no big deal. Or they either aren't aware of it, or, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's okay. I knew that it wasn't good, but, but it's the feelings, okay? You aren't totally different than everybody else. It feels horrible, and it causes lots of problems. I mean, I could sit here forever and tell you what kind of problems neglect causes, especially in your relationships. If this is how you felt when you attached to your caretakers, then there's going to be some degree of this in your relationships when you begin to attach to somebody else. Feelings you had associated with this neglect kind of inattention is going to surface when you're in a relationship where maybe the person you're with, you know, especially disordered people, they aren't very specific about where they're going or when they're going to come back. Okay, things like this will make you feel horrible, total distress, because you just can't control it. That's how you felt. Your body was telling you danger all the time. So when somebody else does this that you're attached to, it's danger. Okay? So like I said, I just want to brush up on neglect a little bit. It's very, very important because it is so damaging. Things to think about. Look up more stuff on your own. This is just another in the series, my C-PTSD series. If you'd like to watch more, please go to my playlist on healing C-PTSD. I think I have over 10 videos now, and I'll continue more because I know there's not a ton of information about this out there. It's not even in the DSM, okay? So any questions you guys have, please go down below and ask me, and I'll try to answer them, okay? Thank you very much, all of you. Love yourself first, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Danny Dog Productions.